Salvation Army co-founder Catherine Booth said, if we are to better the future, we must disturb the present. This is the Disturbance podcast from Salvation Army Women's Ministries.
Mai, welcome to the Disturbance podcast. Today we have the privilege of hearing Terena Goodwin's story. Hi Terena.
Kia ora.
She grew up on the streets and came into transitional housing with the Salvation Army. Today she is, I would say, more than alive. She's brimming with life. And she runs a group called Kaha Wāhine Kotahitanga, which means strong women in unity. Terena, to say it's like a privilege to hear your story. I really mean that. We love, and there's nothing that fills our hearts more as women, is to hear stories of other women and women who are supporting other women.
Kia ora tātou, ko Terena Paratiniri te titoku ingoa. I am a mother of 7 and I am Christian Māori, and I live in the Papakura area.
What happened to you before you came to the Salvation Army? Tell me about your life growing up.
So growing up, I'm raised by strong. I have a long line of strong Māori outspoken women, Ngāpuhi women. I was raised kind of in a family by a solo parent, a solo mother. My father kind of abandoned me when I was pretty much born. My mother was pretty much, she raised us. She raised us on her own. She was hardworking. She went to work all the time, and we didn't really get to see much of her.
How did you end up living on the streets? Do you remember?
So later on, I was sexually abused when I was like 9, and then I started becoming kind of a play up, as you would say. I don't know. Difficult. Yeah, difficult. So, so I was sexually abused at 9, and then I kind of had started smoking and drinking and doing all of this stuff because I hadn't kind of dealt with that type of trauma. And my mum didn't know how to deal with it at the time as well. I was raised around like drinking and partying and stuff like that. And then I ran away when I was 12, and then I tried it again when I was 13.
That's really
And my mum was in a relationship and kind of didn't feel like I was a part of the, the whānau. And, so I was a street kid on the streets of South Auckland, mainly Manurewa, Glendon. I kind of slept in parks and alleyways and,
So do you think it kind of came from the trauma, or do you think it came from that feeling of not belonging in your family?
I think kind of both, like being abandoned, not belonging. Just feeling lonely. Like I found a lot of family in the street kids that I hung out with. And like I felt like they were there for me. Like, they we were close, like as street kids, but we were also like all street kids.
All
sharing trauma. Like all my mates too that I was hanging out with, they all had same backgrounds, like some of them really abusive whānau members, sexual abuse, abandonment, alcohol, drugs. They were all raised around the same situation. So it was kind of easy to be with them out on the streets, but it was hard. It was hard. Like putting food in your puku was hard.
Do you live life on the streets? Like, can you give us who have never experienced that an idea of what it's like?
Oh, it's cold and it's lonely. It's cold and it's lonely out on the streets. It absolutely is. Even when you're with the whole crowd, it's because it's like but at the same time, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, and I was free as a kid. Like I felt free. There was no rules. I didn't have to worry about anybody else. I had no responsibility. No one telling me what to do and how to do it. I was really tough as a kid. Like I was really staunch as a teenager. I hung out with gangs and everything.
What was that? Where did that staunchness come from?
I guess it came from my mum. Like she was just staunch. She was staunch. Yeah, and she was quite strong-willed and quite aggressive herself. So yeah, I guess it comes from her. Yeah, being strong.
All this time, were your whānau trying to get you back, or were you just...
I did have my mum chase me down in the street one time to bring me home, but I was like, nah, I don't want to go, and I ran away from her, but yeah, only that one time.
So that was sometimes. I
was in and out of SIFs. I was in and out of SIFs too. Yeah. So I was in the SIF system from, say, I think it was 14 to 17. I was in and out of SIFs, and then she took me back after my 17. And I started living with her and stuff like that, but it just didn't work out. Me and my mum clashed. We click and we clash even to this day. But I mean, it's a lot better, our relationship now, because we're able to talk about stuff and openly talk about how things were for me and how things were for her. So, you know, we have a really strong relationship now. I mean, we break down from time to time, but I feel like we're in a good place as mother and daughter. So, yeah.
What's it like to be in the foster system?
It's hard. It's hard. I went to a house out of Waiuku and I was out there. They literally because I was a runner. So they literally blindfolded me before I went out so that I wouldn't run again. And they took me out to the house of Waiuku, and I literally didn't even know where I was. I've never been out to Waiuku before in my life.
It must have been so disorientated.
Oh, man, I had to lie my chair down. They blindfolded me, the social worker. Had to lie my chair down, and I was buckled in so that I wouldn't get up or peek. And they took me out at night, late at night. So, yeah.
Traumatizing in itself.
Yeah, well, when you look back at it, you think, oh, because, yeah, I am a runner. But then at the same time, I was a runner. I would run away from every house they put me in because I didn't want to be with these people. Who are these people?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
They're not my family. Who are these people, and why do they want to look after me? Yeah. So I went out to the house out Waiuku, and that was like I was in a house full of girls, right? And it was kind of like you had to stand your ground. Like you really had to stand your ground in a house full of girls who came from the system, because who are you? You're new. You're coming into their space, even though they're new as well. You're coming into their space. Who are you? What can you do? And how tough are you? That's kind of like how
everyone's trying to protect themselves.
Right? Yeah, but also you get tested as well when you're in a house full of girls. Like you get tested. So, you know, you have to stand your ground, and I was quite staunch. So there was a couple of fights.
Yeah.
There was a few fights that went on in the house, and it was unsafe. And so, yeah. And, so one day I took the alcohol out of the cupboard and I hitched and I ran away and I ran back to Southmore, where I felt like I belonged. Yeah.
How did you go from being in that situation of rough sleeper to coming in contact with the Salvation Army?
Well, because I had been through a lot of other stuff. You know, I was in an abusive relationship and all of that. And then I had kids. I was a solo parent. Then I moved up north, and then I came out west. And then I kind of, when I moved from Kaikoui, I wanted to start something. I wanted to start my whole life, and I wanted to change, and I wanted to take another route. Like I was doing the same stuff all the time and around the same type of people. Like I just wanted something different. Met a lady. I moved from Kaikoui. I met a lady named Bex, and she was working with the Tea and Tots program, and she was doing food parcels and stuff like that. I rang them up. And I needed furniture first. I needed furniture, and they directed me to Bex. Bex came, and she...
you had a house?
I had a house. Yeah, I had a house in West Auckland, Te Aratu South. And so she bought me a food parcel. The first time I met her, she bought me a food parcel, and we had a good kōrero about just life and how I got here in the first place and why I moved there. And yeah, she was just so awesome. Like her wairua was so beautiful. She was so open, and she didn't judge me when she met me. And then she kept coming back. Like, I didn't even ask her to keep coming back. She just kept coming back. I think she was coming back every week for like 6 weeks with a food parcel before I actually started going to positive parenting programs.
Yeah.
And then so I started taking my now 5-year-old to the tea and tots with her, and then did the positive parenting program, and then I started going to church. And Pauline and Brian were the pastors at the church at the time, and I started going frequently, and I loved it, and the worship was just so beautiful. Like, that's when I started feeling around with who God was. Like, you know, that's how I started noticing, or just feeling who God was. And
So you started going along to the Sallys?
yeah, I started going along to the Sallys, started going to church, met Pauline and Brian, and I became their hoha. I became just their child, I'd say. They're like my mother, you know, my mum and dad. I always call them my mum and papa of God. But yeah, we became really, really close, and they just had this real personal, deep connection with me, and they helped me in my growth. Just what I mean by that is just nourished and loved on me, you know. So after that, I started, so I was going to church and everything was good. And then I started hanging out with my family members, as well as trying to go to church. But I took one of my family members in, and he kind of was going through his own mental health problems. My daughter was then sexually abused by him when she was 4. Yeah, she was 4 at the time. No, she was 5. Yeah. And then I went downhill after that. After that, that was traumatic.
I mean, how triggering of your
That was so triggering, from my own abuse to her abuse, and me not being able to protect her. And just, you know, I was so angry at God. I was so angry at God, and so angry that, and Pauline and Brian too, that these people had brought me into experience this love of God, yet this happened, you know? So,
yeah.
I went downhill. I went backwards. I went back to smoking drugs, drinking alcohol, just being aggressive and angry at my kids. It was really hard for me. I was so angry. I mean, I'm not now, but I mean, when you look back, I still think, man, how angry and how angry I was to not notice my kids. Like, she had been through that, right? And I was so selfish that I only thought of myself in the situation. I needed to numb myself from the pain that she went through.
Yeah.
So I started smoking drugs, and I started drinking alcohol, and I started distancing myself from her as a mother. Yeah, that was painful. That was painful. And we started counseling together. We started coming out of that and healing from that, but it took so long. Like, it took me to go through all of that, distancing myself from my kids. Like, I was there in their life. I was raising them on my own. But at the same time, I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like, my body was there, but I wasn't there. So, yeah.
Yeah, obviously now, looking back, you know, it's not your fault, but at the time.
Yeah, at the time you think it is. And at the time, like, because you're a mother, your mother instincts kick in, and you're like, why didn't I? You know, why didn't I protect my daughter? Why did I put her in a position that she shouldn't have been in? Why, you know?
But you actually did, because you called the police straight away.
Yeah, so we went to, like, abuse clinic. We got her checked out. I called the police straight away. Like, there was a process and a long process at that. Then after all of that stuff, we went to counselling as mother and daughter. And it's just too much. And so one night I was truly triggered by it, and I put my kids to bed. I wrote suicide notes to my kids, and just letting them know that I wish that they had someone that could protect them and love them, and someone that was better than me at the time. Just sat there contemplating for ages, like, why God? And I was so angry at him still. And I had a lot going on in my head. And me, it's kind of generational. My mom, me, my daughter, who else, type of thing. So like, the thing is that when I did it, I realized then that my kids needed me, but it was too late. Like, you know what I mean? And my neighbors come over and they help me out, and they were like, "What are you doing? This is not good for you. You're a good mom, da da da." But in my mind, I wasn't a good mom, and in my actions, I wasn't a good mom. I really wasn't. And I was just stuck in this hurt, pain, stuck. And I am a very strong, independent woman, but when it came to that, I was weak. I was so weak.
So how did you get out of that absolute rock bottom that's actually...
The funny thing is when I started healing from that, like, came out of the garage and started loving on my kids and stuff like that, like, God came to me. Like, he literally came to me in a voice or in a dream, or that's the first time I had ever experienced or encountered his presence like that before, like in a vision or in a voice. So he said to me, "Get up, there's more for you to do. Get up, there's more for you to do." And so after that, I changed.
Whoa.
So it's like an order, you have more to do. And so that's when I realized that my kids do need me. And I do need to be here with them. And there is more to just this and the life that I was living, the drugs, the alcohol, the everything. There was more, because there was this, cycles of me going through stuff throughout my whole life. So that was my first ever, like, full-on encounter with God. And then after that, I cut away the people that didn't serve me. I cut away relationships that weren't good for me. My brother had passed away and went down the line. Come back and my house was robbed. Come back and my house was robbed from the people that I was hanging out with. I was hanging out with drug dealers and alcohol, people who were doing alcohol and stuff like that. So I went to bury my brother, came back, house was robbed. Kind of had enough. I had enough. Like, I had just been through it, and now this. And I thought it was time to move. It was absolutely time to move. Pauline and Bryant got a hold of Bay and Steve out Manirewa Court, and I moved out here into emergency housing into Manirewa. And I grew up as a street kid around Manirewa Southmore, so that was a buzzy thing, is that God put me where I started, where it all began for me. He put me back in South Auckland, where it all started, where I was, I grew up around here. I know these streets. I know the people, and my heart is here. So he brought me back here, which was buzzy. He brought me back here. Kind of, they got me when I came out of the drugs and the alcohol and stuff. But then I started building my relationship with God again. They are beautiful leaders. Let me tell you that. Steve and Faye are just the most beautiful, encouraging leaders. And they just have a way about them where it's comfortable. And they understand you and they don't judge you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Pauline and Brian, they're my mum and dad. Like, you know, they're going to tell me what's up. But like with Steve and Faye, it was like more like a cousin vibe. Like they have like the older cousin vibe going on. So yeah, it was really encouraging to be around leaders like that. They came to my house. They had a cup of tea, a coffee. I was in emergency at the time, in a standalone emergency house. Actually, no, I was in a hotel. Then I was in a standalone. And then they got to know them, and then they moved me to Salvation Army Transitional.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was out of everything, like all the drugs, all the alcohol, moved away from family members that weren't good for me.
So it sounds like that's some really positive things were starting to happen in your life. And
yes,
would you say that was kind of like a turning point for you?
Yes, I went to transitional after everything. I had been moved around, kind of went to transitional. Faye and Steve were alongside me throughout the whole time I was in transitional. I was going to church Monday to a call, but I had really good social workers too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Transitional Salvation Army. I had really good social workers. Vanessa, she actually helped me with food parcels when I was in transitional. She just helped me with clothes and stuff like that, stuff I didn't have because I had been moving around a lot. But my choices became better as well. Like a lot of the choices that I had made in the past, they were choices that were very good because I chose them. You know what I mean? Like the path that I was on when I was in transitional was I changed. Like there was a whole change, and like I didn't want to be stuck in that same in those same situations and that same life, and I wanted to change. And the building of the relationship with me and God, that changed me a lot as well. Like as the woman I am today, it changed me so much. And just working on that, I could be me, I could be free, and I could be just the person that I always thought I was or knew that I could be, you know, before all of that stuff had happened. Yeah.
I was just thinking, what you just said now made me think of that verse, I've come so that you may have life and have it to the full.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the beautiful thing about Jesus. Oh, you got that? Yeah. That's the thing about Jesus is like when you get to know Jesus better, it's like your own self you get to know and your own, I mean, I see so many strengths in you. Yeah. And I think you're at that stage that now where you're like giving back.
And the thing is you get to let go. You get to heal with God. You get to let go. You get to just come to Him and come to Him personally. And, you know, His Spirit is so strong. Like, you know, He just fills you with the spirit of love. I've never felt a love as deep as I've felt His love. And, you know, I've never, ever experienced a love as deep as this. And I, you know, that's why I can get through all the stuff that I go through if I go through it. You know what I mean? It's easier with His love and knowing that He's in my life now. But yeah, transitional, when I first moved in, it was a little scary. I moved into a neighborhood that I didn't know. Other people from transitional were, you know, there was houses. The whole street was transitional housing. So we had people that came from like down the line, up north, all over the place. And they were moved into these houses. At first I felt isolated. And then as I said, I started going to church, and then I wanted to do more. Like, what more could I do? So what I was doing was I was giving out food, like in the neighborhood.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's how I started getting to know people, was I was giving out food. I was baking and I was giving it to my neighbors, and I was playing outside on the street with the kids, and just getting to know the kids and having game days and stuff like that with the kids. And then I went to a course called Emergence with Steve and Faye that Steve and Faye had started. And what it was doing free expression out in the community, like, you know, bringing out the passions that you already have and the talents that you already have to create a group or, you know, stuff like that. So, Yeah, that's me.
Is that where your Wāhine Kotahitanga group came from?
Yeah, so I started that. It came from Emergence. We did a course, and then we were like, okay, playing with it. Like, what can we do? What should we do? What kind of group should we start up? And what are we good at? And at the time, I had just started crafting. So I started crafting, started getting into tikanga te ao Māori toi, and so creative Māori arts and stuff like that, and just fiddling around with stuff that I knew as a kid as well. And yeah, I started a closet, I would say, a closet. So I had like bits and pieces of cupboard food, and I had just one rack, literally one rack of clothes that I was giving out to the neighborhood for free. And that's how it started. And then I decided that I was going to start a group, didn't know what it was. And then I thought, okay, let's just start a craft group. Like, let's just teach women how to craft. I knew how to make earrings. I knew how to weave. I knew how to upcycle. And I liked the fact that you could use recyclable goods to make something beautiful. So I was pretty artsy and creative in that area anyway. So yeah, that's where Kaha Wāhine come in.
Awesome. So tell me what the group is and what it's become.
So Kaha Wāhine Kotahitanga is Strong Women in Unity. It's about uplifting women who have been through trauma, who need healing through Christ, because Christ is always at the centre of everything we do. So it's just about being there, belonging.
So who comes along? What kind of women come along, and what kind of stories have come out of the group?
Oh, we still have women that come from recovery programs, rehab, abuse, people that are still in domestic violence relationships and stuff like that. But I mean, everyone has a story and everyone needs healing in those situations. So I always say open door policy. It's an open door policy at my house. You are welcome here. No mahara mai ki te taha o toku whare. Come to my house. You are welcome. And yeah, so we just have group in the backyard every second week. I teach a different craft and a devotion on top of that. And we just try and build our relationships, not only with each other, but with God, and share our knowledge and the stuff that we've already been through, like throughout our life. Sharing lives together. Sharing lives together.
So, and when I first came in, I noticed that you've got a garage full of clothes and shoes. And what's that about?
My one rack went from several racks. So I have a free community shed called the Kaha Wāhine Giving. And so I post up every Tuesday on Facebook for people to come, women and children only, because I do work with women and children, but I do want women to come here and shop safely and be able to just be free when they shop, not hovered over or ashamed of how much they're taking, or ashamed of or scared, because we do get women from abusive backgrounds that come, and when men are around they get quite timid. And so I just want it to be a safe place for women and children to shop with no judgment and to come freely, because they the stuff in the shed is from the community. Like, they swap it in, they come in, and it goes out. You know what I mean? Like, the community gives it. I'm just creating a space where they can bring it. So that's a part of what we do as well as the free community group. So I just love this community. I love this community. As you know, I was a street kid around here. I was brought up around South Auckland, and I love this place. And funnily enough, God brought me back to where I started. I wasn't healed when I was first here. Then I wasn't, and I wasn't healed when I came back. I started my healing process from all my childhood trauma up to as an adult now. I feel like it's all healing. Like it's still a continuous thing where he heals you in every situation. But I feel like a lot of what
another layer gets unpeeled, and
but I feel it's like an onion.
Yeah.
But I feel like to this point now, I can openly talk about what I've been through, and I can openly say that I feel healed because of him, and I know that he will never forsake me or leave me. I know that he is always in my life, and I know that he's bringing the right people into my space as well. Like he's bringing people who need the same type of healing that I needed.
Absolutely.
And I just want to be.
And that's what the Wahine group is, and the free store is really, isn't it? Because you've created a safe space for women who may be going through similar things to you. It is about the craft, because you're teaching a beautiful Māori craft, but it's about the community.
It's about the community, and it's about being grounded in who you are, you know, and people are curious. Like we get women who come who don't have a relationship with God, but then they do. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's kind of like we're planting the seed as well. You know, we're uplifting these women and we're teaching them about God and about who they can be as mana wahine toa, but also, you know, their curiosity grows and then they build their own relationships with God. It's not about us being forceful.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about their freedom, them having the freedom to have that growth wherever they want that growth.
Here
at home, we have a karakia, a prayer, a waiata together, a reflection, a devotion, and a craft. And the craft always ties into the devotion and what we do. Yeah.
One of the things that stood out to me as you've been talking is how your natural leadership potential is just blossomed as you've come to know God, and it's that whole thing about like your true self coming forth, right?
Yeah.
The receiving beauty for ashes, which is just you're the living embodiment of that.
And I feel like women are really isolated, especially over COVID. Like COVID was really bad and I was in transitional at that time. There was a lot going on. So people felt really isolated and didn't know how to come out. And
it was almost like we forgot how to have friendships.
So coming out of transitional and being able to have this group, it flourished into relationships and our family. Like we see ourselves as sisters in Christ, like building friendships and building strong relationships is what is needed. It's what's needed. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely. And you're giving them a space that they can do that.
Yeah. Like we get women that don't even know each other that, you know, by the end of the day, they know each other's whole life story.
Like yesterday.
Like yesterday. So just sitting and having a conversation. And by the end of the day, because I do give them time to, talk, and it's a free space. You're either doing the craft or you're sitting over there having a cup of tea and talking. But it's just about building relationships and belonging and being safe in the space together.
There's one more question I want to ask you, because you mentioned before that once you came into a relationship with God, that's when your tikanga Māori came out.
Yeah, that's when
about the effect, that's had.
I never really got into Māori arts until I started building my relationship with God, and not even trying to build my relationship, was coming naturally, but then I started tutuing around with crafty stuff and then wanting to know more about tikanga Māori and how that looked for me, and wanting to research my whakapapa and my pepeha and all these things, and even speaking te reo Māori, I try to do it more, but it never really, the thing is I knew it as a kid growing up. Throughout my life I had spoken te reo Māori and I had learned weaving way back like as a kid, but it never had really stuck until I built my relationship with God, and now it's just this thing that keeps growing, and I keep wanting to learn new things, and it's changing. It changes me, and it changes the way I teach and learn as a person as well.
So awesome. Well, it's been so amazing to hear your story. I can see how you have gone from, having a very difficult beginning, but just completely flourishing now. And that's actually amazing as another woman to see that in another wahine. Yeah, and like what, and also from a Sally's perspective, like what I find really inspiring is
I love the Sally's.
Oh, exactly, because you've got such a beautiful, encouraging, and a hopeful story, but also from women's ministries, the way that I love that one of the outworkings of your relationship with God has been bringing wahine together, bringing women together, and that's like really the heart of women's ministries, especially, at the beginning, when women's ministries first started, it was exactly what you're doing now. It was women who were unsafe in their communities, who were struggling with poverty and addiction, and women's ministry started to give them a safe space and teach them life skills as well, but create community. And so you're like, in a way, like what you're doing is so at the heart of what women's ministries has always existed for. And so from our perspective as well, it's just so encouraging for us to hear that you're doing it. You get it, and you're like just naturally outworking of your giftings is that you're creating community for women. So I just want to total you for that, and just say a huge thank you. And I said at the beginning it was a privilege to hear your story. I just want to say it again. I really mean it. It's been such. I'm actually choking up now. It's been such a privilege to hear your story. And thank you so much for blessing us with it today. It's a tale.
What I want people to know is that no matter what situation you have come from, God will always love you. Like He loves you before whatever you go through, with whatever trauma you go through. He loved you then, and He loves you now. And you can get through anything with the love of God and the power that He has, like the strength that He gives you. He will never forsake you or leave you, and He just loves us unconditionally. That's what I want people to know, is that even if you don't know Him, He knows you and He loves you. Yeah.
Thank you.